Yeah, I think actually um, Larry from Carnivore Soldier is actually streaming to his channel as well, but he won't be joining us. Something come up, so
Hmm.
yeah, maybe next time. Okay, guys. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the live. Today we have just an open forum. We're going to talk about all things carnivore, longevity, all sorts of stuff. But we have joining us the 41-year carnivore himself, Rick Rodriguez. Rick, you want to give us an intro?
Well, hopefully everybody knows who I am by now. I'm the original carnivore quack. I am the tallest carnivore, the most eccentric, and I'm the only one that started the diet because I wanted to get a heart attack. I didn't start the diet for health. I didn't start the diet, to treat a chronic condition. I just hated being skinny and short, and I figured getting a heart attack, at least I wouldn't have to go to high school. So, but it turned out that the carnivore diet actually had some weird effects on me. My grade point average went from C's to straight A's. I grew to be the second tallest kid in high school, and now I'm pretty much the tallest guy of anybody I know because I'm 6'6". And I've had really good results, and I'm 56 years old. I have no aches or pains. I'm the only person I know that's never had back trouble, and I get injured from time to time. In fact, a few months ago, last week, I hit a hole in the sidewalk and I tipped on my bike and scraped my knee, but nothing happened. And the lady that saw me, she was in shock because she thought I was hurt. And I got up, I go, ah. And I just got mad and I pushed over the sign that I hit and bent it. And the lady looked at me like, wow. I said, I'm fine. Don't worry about it. I've hit palm trees. I stepped on a nail a couple weeks ago at Home Depot and it healed. So, all these things happen to me and I'm fine. And then I have to listen to other people I work with complaining about their aches, pains, and the fact they can't get up in the morning and they can't sleep. I go to bed at 11:30. I wake up around 7:30. Always have plenty of sleep. I do my work. I don't need any coffee. As soon as the sun is up, I'm ready to go. So, I started the carnivore diet just to basically get a heart attack, and now I don't know. I'm doing good, I think. I mean, I could drop dead tomorrow. I haven't been to a doctor since 1996, but somehow I think that if I was going to die, I would have symptoms by now. In fact, today I was well, no, yesterday I was working at an office. I had to go from the first to third floor. I took the stairs all the time because the elevator takes too long. So what I would do, I'd take the elevator when I had to move things, and then I took the stairs to go up and down. I still go 2 steps at a time, and even the younger guys just can't keep up with me. I don't get out of breath. I don't get tired. So, and again, if this diet was so bad, shouldn't I be like worn out and feel terrible? And don't you need carbohydrates to do work? Not really. And right now, I got heart attack chicken cooking on my stove. So the carnivore thing, it just goes on and on. One day I'll get that heart attack, but I guess it won't be anytime soon.
Yeah, very good. Yeah. Yeah. How old are you now, Rick? You're 57. I think you're almost 58, aren't you?
Well, I'm 56. My
56.
birthday's in June, so I'll be 57 next year.
Okay. Well, it doesn't look it. You know.
Well, I don't know. I've had a lot of vegans tell me I look unhealthy, but I feel really good. You know, I've had people
It's
tell
too
me,
bad when a vegan thinks you look unhealthy. They look shocking themselves.
well, I say, look, what about Dr. Greger? Dr. Greger's younger than me,
He's
and
younger.
he's younger.
I've been through 3 years of chemotherapy and I look like this. I still look better than him. My God.
The other thing about Dr. Greger is when you listen to him, even if you don't see him, he seems to talk in a way that he can't keep coherent thoughts. His head bobbles around like a bobblehead. It's really quite funny. Many times I've seen him, looks like he's walking on a treadmill while he's talking. It's
It
it's
does.
just comedic. And
Yeah,
then
it's not
and then
strong enough
his
to hold his head still. Like I said, it sort of bobbles like
yeah,
there's little heads on a
His
spring on
nose,
your
nose was.
dashboard. Every time you hit a pothole and it starts wobbling.
yeah. It's so funny because you talk about pencil neck. Well, that's definitely what I think of when I think of a pencil neck. It's a riot.
Yeah,
It's too much.
exactly. Yeah, not a doc. I call him not a doctor, Gray, because he's not actually a doctor. He's never seen a patient in his life, so he's not a doctor.
Yeah,
So,
exactly.
anyway. Let's go, John.
I have to check this guy out because you guys are cracking up. I've never seen. What's his name? Gregor.
Yeah, Dr. Gray.
Michael Greger.
Right.
Michael Greger. He's with his buddy Neil. No, what's that guy's name? The one that wanted to shut down the Heart Attack Grill because he said that it was morally bankrupt. That's another pencil neck. Oh, this guy is really. What is his name? Barnard. Neil Barnard.
Yeah,
they have something called the Physicians Committee for Wellness or some crap like that. It's a vegan propaganda group, and they have that on YouTube. They banned me from that. Every time I make a comment, they kept timing me out, and I think they banned me from it.
A badge of honor, Rick, to be banned.
Physicians Committee, I think, is what they call it. It's a riot.
Wow.
But not a Dr. Greger. He actually wrote. He's got a series of books called
How Not to Die,
How Not to Age. This is what they call a longevity expert. The guy, like he's younger than me. He looks 75 years old. He's got age spots all over his head, and he looks shockingly bad. Like literally, like he's got those photos of him eating a salad for lunch, and he's saying how great it is. But it looks like he's losing an arm wrestle to a fork. That's how weak he is.
I just pulled up pictures of him. A little bald guy with glasses.
That's the one.
Yeah, that's the one.
How old is he?
He's 50. I think he's just turned 51.
Oh my gosh, he does not look good. You're right. How Not to Diet is what the name of his book. Oh my Lord. That's really sad that there's all this stuff. It's confusing people. They're getting all of the mixed messages about cholesterol and saturated fat, and then you have doctors like this sending the wrong messages and publishing.
Well, the biggest thing too is that you get these fake doctors too. Like he's a qualified, but he never actually took
his medical.
Like he never actually did an internship. He never actually saw any. He's never seen a patient in his life. Yeah, he likes to pose with a stethoscope wrapped around his neck and a white coat. And
I mean,
honestly, it looks like when he wears the white coat, it looks like it's hanging on a coat hanger.
I thought I was skinny until I saw some of those vegans. It really is funny. Yeah, I'm skinny, but I don't think I look that skinny.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like putting a coat. It's like putting a coat on one of those, skeletons you have up in the lab in the biology class. It's really ridiculous. But anyway, there you go. That's just the way it is. He keeps it like he actually throughout the last few years. In fact, he was actually pushing people to get jabbed, and he's also he keeps saying the reason why you have to have fluoride in your water is because the population don't take care of their teeth, and fluoride's good for their teeth, and that's how you keep the population healthy. Ridiculous nonsense like that. The guy is just, all he does, he doesn't know how to read science himself. And all he does is push talking points that WEF pushes and stuff like that. That's all he does, basically. But of course, he gets pushed by YouTube because, his
algorithm. Yep.
And he's just dumb enough to take his own advice when it comes to food. That's why he looks so unhealthy.
Wow.
Anyway. Barnard's the same. He's pretty much the same. And he has this I'm so good because all the money from my books goes to my charity. His charity pays absolutely no taxes, and it only his charity actually spends less than 2% of all their earnings on actual charitable events, like charitable things. So it's good tax dodge. But there you go. Anyway, let's move on. John, did you do your intro?
Oh, no, I didn't do my intro. We kept talking about this guy, and then I went looking him up. And you guys were, so I'm John Laspina. I'm Carnivore teacher on YouTube. I also post other social media sites. I try to reach as many people as possible, and I get different feedback from different social media sites. So it's kind of working, and I'm really glad because that's the only reason I want to do this. I made my life healthier. I feel better. Emotionally, I just eliminated a lot of medical problems, and the big one was emotional. And of course, I lost some weight, which I thought was the reason I started. And it turned out to be just a side effect that I got in good shape. I also exercise, but I feel like I need to share this with people. It's so simple and so basic to eat only from the animal kingdom and cook only in animal fats. So simple, so basic. It's not complicated. And I try to make videos explaining this to people on YouTube, different topics, different ways. And that's why I like to do these lives, because of community and support. Different people watch these and learn little tips and bits from different people. And that's important to me, because I will take something away from this. I take something away from everything I watch and see. I learn something new and I add it to what I know, and I try to pass it on. So the carnivore is our ancestral way of eating. We are supposed to be eating this way. Your topic today is diet, health, and longevity. I think that of all the diets in the world, this way of eating is longevity. This is the way we're supposed to eat. And so it's so easy to do it. I haven't had an issue for years and years and years. It's enjoyable. And like Rick says, once you eat a meal, you don't want to snack. You don't want any more. The fat and protein satiate you, and there's your longevity. It's not something that you start and stop. It's not a diet. Yeah. So I'm on to continue to share that message, and hopefully when other people are ready to hear it, when they're ready to see it, when they're searching, maybe they'll find some of these videos, and when they're ready, they'll start learning. Because you can just talk to people like a religion or like politics, and people shut you down and turn you off if they're not ready. But when people are ready, we're out there to teach them, and that's kind of why I'm on.
Yeah, well, plant the seed, at least,
and plant the seed.
People.
Yeah.
But when we talk about longevity, like this is something I wanted to talk about too. Is there's nothing to prove that any diet is going to give you longevity. There's no evidence of anything of that. But on carnivore diet, for example, all you can say is that you feel better, you feel healthier, you're healthier at the moment. I know I've gone from a lot of medication and a lot of treatments, and I've gone through a lot of things, but now I'm on zero medication. I'm feeling very good, and I'm recovering from chemotherapy and other things. But all you can really say is that now we feel good and we are healthy, and that's more than a lot of people can say. So however long we are here, it doesn't really matter if we're here for 50 years, doesn't matter if we're here for 150. You want to be able to enjoy those years that you are here. Like me and Rick agree on this, is like you want to drive the wheels off it, and then you just plonk out one day and
yep, a heart attack.
Yeah, you don't want to be stuck in bed for 20 years before you die.
Yeah.
So. Okay, Suresh, you want to tell us about yourself?
Absolutely. So, basically, I'm on YouTube, everything as well, like you guys, and I got my own personal health story, like everybody else. I think all doctors that are in this space, whether it's low carb, keto, or carnivore, whatever it is, we've all got our own story, because it shows you the standard medical advice. The things that we're taught in med school just don't really work, actually. So you want to make a change. And how I kind of started my carnivore journey, I was basically just, morbidly obese. I was approaching or heading towards very close to pre-diabetes. If I was in America, I would have been diagnosed with pre-diabetes. Australia, I wasn't quite meeting that cutoff. And I was just staring down the barrel of, heart disease, diabetes, and everything that comes along with that metabolic syndrome. I'm sure cancer and God knows what else. But I'd given up, because I was exhausted by the on-off dieting, yo-yo dieting that I was doing, never knowing what was really working, and everything was just too hard to stick to. I'd get a bit better, I'd lose weight, felt fine, inevitably come off, pile the weight back on, and just slowly going backwards, really. And I'd just given up because it was just too hard. And I look back on photos, and I just think now, like, oh my God, like, how did anyone even trust me as a doctor looking like that? But, they did. And so I found carnivore. And so it was like, you know what? I'm basically unhealthy. I'm morbidly obese. I'm probably going to die young anyway. Like, what's the harm in trying this diet? Like, if it doesn't work out, fine. I'll just go back to what I was going to do, go on the statins, go on the diabetes meds, and just, that was my life. And just instantly, within not even 36 hours, I think, I started it on the Saturday evening after hearing Dr. Anthony Chafee talk at Low Carb Down Under. Went home and just was like, that's it. Carnivore, bought meat, went out and ate meat, and didn't even go to the conference the next day. It was a 2-day conference. I actually skipped the next day because I was like, no, I'm carnivore now. Like, this is it. I'm just going to stay home and eat meat. And within 36 hours by the Monday, I woke up just feeling like absolute Superman. It was unbelievable, the difference. So I did pretty strict carnivore, like basically 0 carb, like no pepper, herbs, spices, like pretty much anything for about 12 months. Initially felt amazing, but then started to get a little bit of issues down the line. And in the meantime, I was seeing patients who were also having some issues with carnivore. So I ended up kind of coming out a little bit and saying, look, I'm not sure carnivore is the best, I'll be honest. And so I ended up trying an animal-based diet because I thought, you know what, I'll add in some carbs. And I was seeing some people getting benefit from this. So I added in some carbs, and Rick's shaking his head already. And, I felt better. Like John was saying, off stream, like I felt better adding in a little bit of carbs. So I went forwards, and then I started listening to people like Paul Saladin. I was listening to him a little bit anyway. I know. And ended up, I just kind of went, you know what, I'll just put more carbs in because I feel a bit better doing carbs, like John was saying earlier off stream. And eventually I just got to the point where I was eating Paul Saladino levels of carbs. Felt really good, but my weight just like ballooned. I put on like probably 15 kilos, I think, in like 3 months. Shocking amount of weight. And I just convinced myself that this was fine. Like it was muscle, because I was working out a lot, and I gained muscle as well. But like I think back now, and it's like, oh my God, like I just got so fat. And so I realized this was not good for me, kind of started slowly backing off the carbs again, but I also felt a bit better in the same sense. So I realized, okay, well, maybe there's something, a little tiny bit of carbs perhaps is the solution for me. So I've slowly been backing off the carbs because I was conscious. I didn't want to just flip flop between carnivore, like strict carnivore, and then animal based, knowing that there was issues on maybe both, for me at least. So that's where I'm at now, really, is I'm kind of back on carnivore. I'm not sure I ever truly went off carnivore. It depends who you talk to. I mean, people do animal-based and call it carnivore anyway. So, but I'm off a strict carnivore now, but I'm pretty much just like, I think maybe like John now, just basically meat, eggs, and a glass of milk a day. And I feel great. Like I feel amazing again. And my joint pain's gone. My stress is gone. My mental health is improved. And I never really had depression as such, prior to carnivore, at least not in the early days of carnivore or prior to carnivore. Way back in med school, I think I probably did actually have depression, thinking back to what I was like then. But now, like my mental health, my physical health is just incredible. And so I take this to patients, and I talk to them about it, and I see the amazing benefits of this carnivore adjacent, whatever you want to call it, anywhere from strict carnivore all the way through to animal based, to be honest, if they can handle the carbs. And the difference in their health is just unbelievable. When you take those plant toxins out of the diet, wonderful things can happen. And I've seen people, I'm sorry if I'm rambling, but I've seen incurable things being cured, and I know how it sounds. Like it just sounds ridiculous. And 2 years ago, if I'd have said that to myself, I probably would have referred myself to the regulator for just talking nonsense, but I've seen it now. And people with just these like precancerous blood disorders, just for the first time in maybe 20 years, just their blood tests just normalizing. And these are markers that we monitor for signs of progression, and yet they're improving. Like, that doesn't necessarily mean that their risk is going down, but it probably does, if that's logically what it would follow. Things like PSAs going down. I've got a patient with prostate cancer who's on a watch and wait protocol, and their PSA is going down when they took out plants. Yeah. And that is the progression marker for the cancer. Like, that's what we're monitoring to see if it's getting worse, and yet it's getting better. on a carnivore diet or a very close to a carnivore adjacent diet.
Yeah.
I've just seen so many amazing benefits from this lifestyle, this way of eating. It's just exactly what you want to eat that varies between people, maybe. And that's where I've come to land. I think I was maybe a bit too zealous at the start, maybe a bit too zealous in changing back to carbs. And I've kind of realized that, yeah, look, what works for the individual is what works at the end of the day. But I'm definitely back on carnivore and I just feel incredible. I really do.
Yeah. So like there's a number of factors that, like Salad Boy, he lives in a very tropical climate for one. So he sweats a lot. He spends all day on the surfboard, basically. He surfs all day long. So he has a benefit where, carbohydrates are extremely high in deuterium, but you sweat it out. You sweat out deuterium, So, he can get away with eating a lot of carbs at the moment. But if you have a look at before and after photos of the last, say, 5 years, he's actually aged quite a bit. Carbs age you very quickly. I think that's because of glycogen. I think it's because of your liver function too. You get fatty liver, even though you look fit and lean. You get fatty liver disease from eating too many carbohydrates because your liver actually produces fat when you're eating those sugars. And I think that was one of my problems.
Yeah, I think I'm super carb sensitive. I think for me, my probably Northern European heritage, I'm half Indian, half English or Welsh. Mum will kill me if I say English. And so I think for me, like I'm the least Indian in my family, which means I've probably got more the Northern European side. And historically, like we probably would have had very little access to carbohydrates in that cultural kind of genetics. So I think for me, like those carbs, and it's probably an evolutionary advantage, I suppose, if you've got very little access to carbs, when you do eat them, put on a lot of fat for winter and so on, Whereas Paul Saladino, I think he's Italian heritage, if I recall. I'm not sure exactly. He would have had access, or his genetic history, they would have had maybe a little bit more carbs. So he's probably less sensitive to those carbs. And like you said, he's surfing all the time. I'm sitting in an office most of the day, get like 20 minutes of exercise. That's it. So my journey, it's a health journey. It's a never ending health journey, and, but I've kind of come
for everyone. It is. We all have to experiment with what we're eating, what works best for each other. Like you can do all the research you want, but you still have to test these things out for yourself.
You do. I think the journey is really important. And I think I say this often to patients because they come in saying like, oh, I fell off the wagon. I've made mistakes. I think they're only mistakes if you don't learn from them. I think if you learn from it, I think it's just all part of the journey. And every step of that journey is useful as long as you learn.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Well, that's how you learn, isn't it? So absolutely. I'll just have a couple of these comments here because this was a really good one. Hello from Australia, 64-year-old retired Air Force working as a contractor till 2022, retired, fat, bloated, sick on meds, went carnivore 16 months ago, lost 75 pounds, very good, effortlessly, cured 50 years of IBS and diabetes.
Amazing.
Very good. Yeah, that's great.
It's amazing.
George is another one. George, his partner, his wife Lainey, is dealing with cancer as well, and they're managing. He reversed type 2 diabetes as well. Great story, actually. NHS tell me I'm in perfect metabolic health and my knees are back. Carnivore is fun. Excellent. I've not stopped the clock. I'm winding it back. Yeah, exactly. You feel. I don't know about you guys, but I feel a fair bit younger. Especially coming out of the years of treatment that I had. I felt very old and frail. Like my platelet production very low. Chemotherapy affects your body's production of platelets and things like that. So your bones and everything are very frail. But being on carnivore, high fat diet feels amazing. It really does. The recovery process it feels good. You feel younger. And he's heading towards carnivore. We should be great. Excellent. Good job. Aid says hello, Suresh.
I'm not sure where Aid is. It's not cold here in Brisbane.
Well, Abe lives down.
He's out in the country somewhere.
Yeah, he's got a big cattle farm down south a little bit, near Warwick, I think it is. Yeah, sanitarium. Yeah, that's just pure evil.
Oh.
And the food tastes like garbage. I mean, I use the word food liberally there, like Wheat Bix. I mean, it's just like eating cardboard.
Yeah,
I hate
really
that they pay no tax. I mean, it's unfair.
It's
yeah, it is completely. Yeah. Yeah, I think cardboard would actually be healthier than what they serve up, actually. Their manufactured version of food. Question. I believe the appointment of Robert F. Kennedy Jr. as health minister in the USA is a potential game changer. Was the panel's thoughts? I thoroughly agree. How about you guys?
It's an interesting... Yeah. I think from a doctor's perspective, there's a lot of a chatter about RFK and anti-vax status, his approach to these things, fluoride, and so on. I think as far as trying to bring meat back on the menu, like 100%, absolutely 100%. There are perhaps some issues around anti-vax, kind of sentiments. Most vaccines, I don't want to derail the conversation today, but they are on the whole proven to be pretty safe and effective. Things like COVID vaccines, a little bit less so. I'm not, necessarily.
Well, that depends.
Those,
I mean, I think RFK's, if you ever listen to RFK though, like his point is that none of the vaccines are actually tested when they come to
very
market.
Very few.
Yeah.
But
actually,
I think anything
they actually sued. They've actually, like over the last few years, they've actually been suing these companies for information on their testing process, but they can't provide any test data because none of them have actually been tested. And that's his whole stance on it. And why should a drug come out to market without any tests?
Yeah. Oh, I absolutely agree. And I think testing on population is, unethical, really, of course.
Right,
but I think from like the meat perspective, if we focus on that, I think anyone that's encouraging people to eat more meat, get rid of processed food, get rid of junk food, promoting health, that's talking about health, talking about just getting back to the basics of health, talking about maybe reducing prescriptions and the reliance on medications, I think is fantastic.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that's his. I mean, I think it's going to be a very big blow against, because he's going to be. I mean, the FDA, who just rushes through all these different foods that these manufactured food companies sort of process and whatnot, and they just don't care at all. So as long as they get paid,
Well,
so
the problem is the system is designed to give you less for more. So the idea is they're going to give you less, they're going to charge you more, and that's how they get rich. People, in order for one person to get rich, you have to exploit thousands or millions of other people. You have to reduce their living standards, but they can only do that when it's in secret. Once their plan becomes common knowledge and people figure out the game, then they have to change the game. So they have to keep finding somewhere else where they can exploit people. It's the same old process. And I have a funny feeling that even if they do put this information out there, they're going to use propaganda. They're going to use whatever so-called evidence they can find to convince people that they should continue to eat the duck food because that's what makes them money. I mean, if you think about it, meat is not a big moneymaker. Now, I know you have the so-called, you have the feedlots and all that. I understand that. But at the very basis, the only economical way to produce meat is to have pasture. And the thing is, pasture land can't be developed. You can't stuff it with a bunch of stack and pack apartments. That's what they did here in Florida. They wiped out all the pasture. Now they have these unsightly apartment buildings everywhere, houses piled on top of each other. There's traffic everywhere. Standard of living, down the toilet. But it made them a lot of money. So what are these people going to eat? Well, they can't eat local food because they don't grow any anymore. So now they got to find some kind of commodity crop they can feed them, just like chicken feed or duck food or whatever, bare minimum you give the animals. The people are the same way. They say, well, we have CAFO, concentrated agricultural feeding operations, but Miami is just CAFO for humans. That's all it is. You just cram as many people as you can in here, feed them crap, and that's it. And you might think, well, Miami, you're going to have all these people in shape. It's not like that at all. You look around here, how many unhealthy, overweight, just really, I mean, you know, John lives in Florida. He knows what I'm talking about.
It's or go to Disney if you want to see it. Go to a go to a theme park, and the obesity is just I couldn't believe I hadn't been in a long time when we went a couple years ago. People are in motorized wheelchairs that are just they're all the obese. I don't know why, but it just was more obese people than healthy people. And they're eating their ice cream cones and drinking their Coca-Cola.
That's the same here. It's absolutely insane. Like at the moment, like I can walk around a shopping mall in Australia,
right,
and I'm actually metabolically healthier than most people there.
Yeah, it's scary.
You know,
and they don't know it. They are in a fog of their own
right.
eating. They don't realize it, and we don't know how to wake them up. Politically, I hate to talk about politics because, you know, people have their own, it's like religion, you know, you don't want to offend people. RFK is right on this. Politically, I don't want to jump onto the political thing with vaccines and everything, but if we can, in whatever administration RFK would have been attached to, if he's in there and he is for carnivore and for trying to wake the public up and saying this is healthy, this is not going to clog your arteries, and saturated fat is actually healthier than seed oils, then I'm all for it.
Yeah,
that's right. Absolutely.
Yeah, and that's what it's all about, isn't it? Like he's more focused on getting people off medications rather than putting them on more.
I'm hoping that it'll go it that way, but like Rick, I don't see it happening because it's all about the money. It's all about the big money, and you know, we've seen this before in other administrations. They try to do something and then it falls to the wayside. Politics gets involved and nothing happens. And I hope I'm wrong about that. But
yeah, I think anyone that's coming in to challenge the system is and dissuade people from buying, you know, kind of just pre-made crap. And, you know, there's too much money in the system. I don't really see it happening, you know, to be honest. So
it's going to be difficult. And like you said, like the processed food company, like the food industry is the biggest industry in the world. You know, so it is. I mean, it has its tentacles in everything, absolutely everything. You know.
Yeah.
And it feeds big pharma.
Yeah. Sorry, DC. I got to jump out for about 15, 20 minutes. Is that all right?
You're right, man. Yeah, sure.
Yeah, got to go pick my wife and kids up from the gymnastics carnival.
No worries, mate. Thanks for joining us.
Yeah, no worries. Cheers.
Good to meet you. If you come back.
Yeah, no, I'll be back.
All right, good.
All right. So, I mean, it's difficult at the moment to have a positive outlook on politics at all. It really is, because we've just had for so long, we've had these corrupt, mindless drones running our countries that are that do nothing but lie. So whenever there's, but I will say that this is I think I'm feeling pretty positive about your new administration in America, because I think that it's something that we haven't seen before, you know. And the last person who successfully took on the central bank was that Jefferson, wasn't it? He got rid of the second central banking system in America.
It wasn't Jefferson. It was Andrew Jackson.
Oh,
Andrew Jackson.
That's it. Jackson. Yeah, Andrew Jackson. Yeah. So, and you know, like people who keep saying like Trump's part of the administration, and so on and so on and so on. Well, you know, if he was really a puppet and, you know, working for the administration, they wouldn't be taking shots at him, you know. So let's just see what happens. You know, that's all we can do. There's really nothing we can do about it individually, except wait and see. But, you know, here in Australia, I will say we just managed to, you know, stop them from imposing a what they call the disinformation bill, which, you know, Australia was trying to dictate to the world, you know, what we can and can't listen to. You know, they said it was to protect the children, so on, under 16 years old. They wanted to ban it. has banned social media for under 16-year-old children, which means they have to monitor and that includes like the platforms, like controlling the platforms, international platforms like Twitter and all these other social media platforms. And fortunately, we managed to stop them from doing that. That happened yesterday. But they're trying to dictate to the world, so it's crazy what's going on. It really is. All right, so try and avoid a bit more politics, but anyway. Yes, it's not to be viewed as a diet. Yeah, I agree. Depends on your definition of diet, but it's our natural human diet. I think so.
Yeah, we use the word diet two different ways, going on a diet like Jenny Craig, or our way of eating is our diet. So people do get confused. I used to hate the word diet for that reason. I tend to use it more now because I'm hoping people understand.
That's another thing that was taken over by the food industry. Like the fitness industry is notorious for it. You have to go on a diet sort of thing. This diet will fix you. This diet will make you healthy.
Well, again, like Rick said, they're out to make money. It's all about the almighty dollar.
That's what it's all about.
If you, I don't watch regular television anymore. I can't stand it. If you ever put on the regular cable and television here in the United States, the commercials, the amount of commercials, the medical commercials, and it's all to get you to spend your money. And then you're waiting for your entertainment to come back on, and you get a couple minutes, and then you're back to the commercials where they're selling the products again. That's why I kind of like, I have Roku, and I have, with my community where I live, it's, we get HBO for free. So at least I can watch stuff without commercials, but it's all about making money. It's the commercialism is so strong out there. And a lot of people just don't realize that. They just sit there like drones watching the television channel, and they're, they're buying products left and right.
Yeah, that's right. And that's what it's all about. And, and this is the thing, I see it creeping in a little bit in carnivore as well. But whenever there's when paleo started and then keto started, you get these, the food industry sneaks in their processed snacks. You get these paleo snacks and you get these keto snacks. And now you start to see some of it with carnivore, but not so much. But, again, it's just heavily processed stuff they convince us is healthy. But it's ultra processed garbage. So, what about what else should we talk about? I sort of got off track a bit there. We're talking about politics.
Well, Jackson's talking about donating blood for the first time, and it wasn't bad. And I've donated blood before. It's actually healthy for us to let some blood out of our body and allow our body to make new blood again with the iron and everything. Not only that, but hoping that it's going to the right place. You're actually helping people that need your blood. So I'm gonna try to do it twice a year.
Go away.
Yeah, it's good to. It is good to bloodlet every now and then. It's there are other things that give you the same effect though. Like when bloodletting, helps the body sort of clear up more toxins and things like that, get out of your blood, sort of thing. But fasting also helps with things like that.
Absolutely, yes. Yeah, fasting is underrated.
Yeah, fasting is very much underrated. Actually, there's a lot of good benefits from fasting, and it's good. I think. There's never really a time, especially in society today, where a person's body is empty or devoid of food because they're just continuously feeding. They're grazing like cattle do.
They really are, and it's not just 3 meals a day. It's snack, lunch, snack, dinner, snack.
Yeah, right.
And they say they only eat 3 meals a day, but it's lots of snacks. So it's multiple meals, and their pancreas is never shutting off. And it's very low autophagy, if any. It's kind of, they're hurting themselves. They don't know it. We're creatures of path of least resistance, and we want to feel good. And a lot of people are using food as a drug. They're bored. they're depressed, they're angry, they will eat out of an emotion. And I talk about that a lot on my channel and on my Wednesday nights too, that, people are not eating for the right reasons. We're supposed to eat because we're truly hungry. Our body's calling for nutrition, not the cravings that we get because of all the sugar and carbs, but they don't know that.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. And then we have the sugar holidays, and we just had one. Now Thanksgiving, Christmas, all this stuff, all the crap that the parties, if you go to any parties, it's everywhere, and it's in excess, and it's hard for people who are just starting out on a low carb way of eating. I've been doing this for a long time, and believe me, I look at that stuff very differently than I used to look at it before.
Oh, yeah.
And I encourage anybody who's watching or listening, the longer you do the proper eating, the proper diet, the easier it becomes, the more it becomes human nature and natural to you. And the other stuff doesn't seem so natural. That bowl of ice cream, those potato chips don't seem as normal as they used to when you ate before, which is a good thing. It's a very good thing.
Yeah. Yeah, that's right. I mean, the problem is we grew up with that stuff. So we look at it as food, the way we're supposed to look at it, we were meant
I look at it as cheap crap.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
well, I wish we could look through your eyes, Rick. I wish everybody could look through your lenses, because your perspective is unique. Yeah. What are you eating?
You probably know what this is.
I can't see. It looks like broccoli. What is that?
Heart attack chicken.
Heart attack chicken.
Oh, wow. Boy, is that, I could see the coating of fat.
Uh-huh. It's just plain old chicken put in pure tallow or lard.
It's like you deep fried it. Good for you.
Really crunchy, too.
Is it cold or warm?
Oh, it's hot.
Oh,
it's steaming.
Okay. All right. I'm starting to like leftover food that's refrigerated, and I don't heat it up. Like, I'm liking cold meat. I'm liking cold leftovers, and instead of melting the butter, having butter on the dish and having it's cold. I never did that before, and I'm starting to really enjoy it.
Pretty soon you'll be like me, eating cold lard and tallow.
I've done it with butter a little bit, so I could see doing it for sure.
Mm-hmm.
I rub tallow on my head every day and in my beard.
Look, I've had it on my hair for years and it hasn't fallen out yet.
You have hair. Yeah, look at all that hair. Well, genetically, I was blessed. The men on my mother's side are all bald, so I think I inherited that.
I just grew faster than my hair did, is all.
I saw that.
Did you see that Dr. Chafee was nominated for RFK's Maha cabinet?
I did read that somewhere. Yeah.
Yeah, that would be great.
That would be interesting. He would have to stop his entire profession and stop being a brain surgeon and probably stop a lot of his YouTubing. So I doubt he's going to take it, because he's reaching so many people this way. I don't know if he'll do that, but
I don't know. I mean, if he is in the cabinet, that he might actually reach more people on mainstream media and things like that.
If they'll give him airtime, if they'll give him the time that we give him when we watch him, he'll reach people that. And honestly, if he's talking the way he's talking on YouTube, people are going to look at him and say, "What? Plants are trying to kill me." What? And then the average person's going to turn it off. It's almost like religion, and you can't talk at people, even if you're a representative in government. It's. I don't see it working.
Yeah.
But anything's better than nothing when it comes to a governmental agency and what we have.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. Yeah. But, it'd be good to have someone in that sort of position that can actually hopefully change some things down the line,
Certain. I have a question for the two Australian gentlemen here, and it has nothing to do with food. And I'm just curious. It's kind of about government. And I believe, and correct me if I'm wrong, in your country, firearms, guns were outlawed a while back, and nobody has them. Well, people do have them. You just have to have. You just have to be licensed. You can have them then.
Yeah, you can have them under certain circumstances. For example, if you have pistols, for example, that you can't keep pistols at home. They have to be kept at a gun range in a lockup, and they have to be registered. So it's basically every gun owner in Australia is registered with the police and with the WEF. That's the difference.
Right.
There was, of course, this was because they had a big buyback. I think it was in the
I remember
90s,
hearing about that. Yeah,
Hobart shooting, which that's a whole other subject. But farmers can keep them if they have a certain amount of property. They can keep rifles and things like that to shoot predator animals, to protect their livestock, to protect their crops and things like that. And professional hunters and things like that. So there are actually probably more guns in the public today than there was back in the 90s when the big buyback happened. However, every single one of them is registered, and so it's just really strict laws on that.
Interesting to hear the comparison and the statistics of gun-related violence, crime, and death are probably on two ends of the spectrum with the United States and Australia because of that.
Yeah,
and that's a hot political topic. Not to go there, but interesting.
Well,
it's just interesting to see how politics and government can affect change in different areas, for sure.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, there's a lot of things behind these acts, I think, but it's just interesting to me that in America, the only places that these happen are in gun-controlled areas. So whatever.
Yeah, but here, like I've done some forms for people like farmers and stuff. Like you have to go to see your doctor, get a medical clearance, certify that you've not had any issues with mental health, and so it's pretty rigorous control here. Yeah,
very much so.
Same as in the UK where I grew up and used to live. Same thing. I do forms for people, farmers, and people like that legally are allowed to own them, but they still have to go get their GP to certify they haven't had mental health issues, depression, schizophrenia, things like that could be a potential risk. And
if you look at the UK, for example, they sure they don't have as many guns in the public area, but they have just as high, or actually much higher now, knife violence. So it's not the tool, it's the people.
I think it's a combination, because if you have an AK, which can shoot multiple bullets very quickly, that's a tool that can do a lot more harm rapidly than a knife.
Yeah.
So this is varying. It's varied.
Yeah.
Now, I'm sorry I brought it up. Let's get off the topic and get back to diet and
carnivore.
Subject, I just was curious because I had two Australians. I just wanted to hear from the horse's mouth, and you answered interesting. I'll walk away tonight learning something different about Australia and the gun laws, at least. So
per capita, actually, there is quite a lot of guns in Australia, but it's just very rigorously registered, or they're monitored and things like that as well.
People with guns kill people. So it's people and it's guns. The people can't do it without the guns. The guns can't do it without the people, obviously. But it's not a black and white. It's not a one issue. It's a very complicated issue. But it's political.
Yeah. Don't worry about it. I don't want to talk about that today. So,
Next one. Next topic.
Yeah, people are people, and that's all you can say.
Exactly.
So I mean, let's get on to longevity, because I think this is
good topic.
Like I said before, there's nothing to. I don't. When someone says they're a longevity expert, sort of thing, I just switch off completely, because honestly, there is nothing out there to prove that any diet is going to let you live longer than any other diet. All right. There's a lot of variables when it comes to longevity. But as I said too, you feel you are healthier in the day when you're on carnivore. When you are healthier, obviously that would lead to longevity, but that's just speculation.
Now, when I think of longevity too, I think of the way we're eating. It's easier to eat this way in the long term than a diet, where you start the diet and you go off the diet. That's not longevity. So I'm thinking of it that way as well. I can eat this way for the rest of my life. So I call this way of eating a longevity. I can do this for a long time and stay healthy. I think healthier.
Rick's making me hungry with his fried chicken. I haven't had breakfast today. I'm on a fast at the moment. I'm like, oh man. I think I'd agree with both DC there, David and John. There are no like real longevity experts. It's the same with like microbiome experts. Like nobody knows what a good gut microbiome actually is. We know what a bad one is, so to speak, as far as like really bad bacteria, but we don't know what actually is a good microbiome. Same thing with longevity, but I think it's definitely my perspective is very similar to John's in the sense of if it's something that you can stick to for your whole life, if it's something that is improving your baseline, getting rid of your medical conditions, making you feel better. I mean, what else is longevity? Really. But if we want to get into some of the maybe like biomarkers of longevity, I mean things like CRP, HbA1c, your blood counts, your monocytes, your gamma GT levels, like ESR, like all of these things almost always inevitably improve on a carnivore diet, almost completely. Exactly. And when you take out a lot of the plants, the vegetables, because people would argue that a vegan diet also does the same thing. But, I've seen people improving from a vegan diet going on to then eventually slowly transitioning to a carnivore diet. And it does happen. And those markers still go down. They go down on vegan compared to a standard Western diet, which is just garbage. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Of course. And that's the thing with a vegan diet is all the research really is vegan versus garbage. It's never like vegan versus good. Or vegan versus carnivore, say keto carnivore. It's always just vegan versus garbage, and so all those markers of longevity that we're individually looking at anyway in that longevity space, they all improve on a carnivore diet. So what is longevity? I mean, for me, I think it's a pretty damn good diet for that.
I agree.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, a sustainable diet.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I agree 100%. How about you, Rick? You got any thoughts?
Well, I got a few thoughts. First of all, this little guy will not leave me alone. So, but I think, people talk a lot about microbiome and all that. I think that's actually a side effect. I don't think that having a certain bacteria really makes a difference because if you think about it, I mean, it's coming out the other end. You've already digested most of that stuff. It's almost like soil biology, when you're growing plants, it's very important that the soil biology be a certain way. And when things are unhealthy, then the bacteria and everything change. I think it's the same thing with people. If they're obsessed with getting a certain type of bacteria in their system, they may be looking at it the wrong way. They're looking at the side effect. That might be if somebody's healthy, well, they're able to run a mile without getting out of breath. It's not so much that they can run a mile that makes them healthy. It's just that when they're healthy, they're able to do that. This cat, I don't know if my video is working, but he's climbing all over the camera and everything. It's crazy.
We can hear you.
And the funny thing is, this cat is an example. He eats no carbohydrates. All he eats is raw meat. He's growing rapidly. He's got so much energy. It's amazing. Yeah. And that's one of the reasons when I started the diet, I thought, well, people used to tell me, well, you have to eat, rice and beans and all this stuff to get energy. You're not going to have any energy just eating meat. But it's like, well, I'm eating meat and I got plenty of energy. So I don't know what, it doesn't make sense. So I think a lot of times, really what it is, people want to make money. I mean, we know the main motivator of everything is money. This is why people they go on YouTube or they go and they start diet programs. And again, since the 1980s, everybody had a get rich quick scheme. So it's the same thing when you're unhealthy. Everybody wants to have a get healthy quick scheme. Like, oh, you eat this miracle food or this superfood or you do this one thing every day and you're going to get healthy. But that's garbage because we know that in the natural world, that's not the way that things work. You can change one thing and you don't notice any difference. But then what happens over time, you start adding these things up. And, this is the problem. It's like you were saying, you go on the carnivore diet for a while. And then after a while, it doesn't work so well. So you go, you know what? I'm going to add some carbohydrates. There's nothing wrong with that. But the thing is, how much? If you start going overboard, maybe you might eat a fruit every day, or you might eat some fermented vegetables and you get benefit. But then what happens? You go, well, I'm going to eat more. Next thing you know, you're eating the rice and the potatoes and all the other stuff, and then you feel like crap and you're getting fat. And then everyone wants that quick fix. Every time you turn on the TV, like you said, you have all these commercials, even on YouTube. What are the main commercials you see now? Well, when I was a kid, they used to advertise breakfast cereal and all this other low fat and all this crap. Now you turn it on, at least half of the ads are going to be for medications. Take Jardians or take all this other crap. They got some fat people dancing around and they have some catchy slogan. And then it's like, well, we're just going to get these people this medication. I saw a Wegovy ad on one of the YouTube videos I was watching. I'm like, wow, you're going to take a stomach tranquilizer so you don't eat that much? It's totally nuts. And again, this is going to happen. It's harder to happen in the carnivore community because the carnivore community really doesn't have any kind of miracle products. The idea is you cut out the carbohydrates, you have to eat meat and drink water. And I mean, what kind of products can you make? Beef jerky? That's about it. It's not a high profit commodity based thing. Now, again, if you're going to have a quick fix, I mean, I'm not saying that you can't take supplements because some people need minerals. You might need iodine. There might be other supplements you can take, especially when someone's really unhealthy, to kind of smooth out that transition. But for a normal, healthy person, you don't need that stuff. And if you're just going to sell people meat, how are you going to make a lot of money? Yeah, you can make some money, but you're not going to be able to leverage that up and have some IPO and sell a bunch of stock and borrow against that and play the game with the central bankers that they're all playing so you can get rich without doing anything. Because if you're in the meat industry and you're producing regenerative meat, you're going to have to work a lot. Even if you're not the one out there actually in the field, you're going to have to be there dealing with people and trying to solve problems. It's not an easy way to make money. And this is the thing, everybody wants that easy way. They want that instant health fix. They want that easy money fix. And the world doesn't work like that. If you look at nature and the way things work, it's all interrelated. The only way that a forest can grow is if you have multiple species together, some predators, some prey, working together. You start some monoculture and you see what happens. It all goes downhill. You can't do that. But again, that's just my view. I'm a little bit eccentric, but I hate the quick fix. I hate the get rich quick schemes. And I just hate the lies that people tell. And I'm afraid it might also happen with a carnivore diet. We don't want to see that. That's why we continue to come out here and share our real world experiences.
Yeah,
agreed.
Exactly.
Guys, I want to stay a little longer, but I got to get rolling. I have somewhere to be. So I want to appreciate
John. Thanks for joining us, mate.
It was good to meet you, everybody. And I'll see you next time.
Take care.
All right, guys. See you, mate.
Yeah, I just want to.
That's a good point too.
A little bit, if I can, there, David, on things like Wegovy, Ozempic, Manjurina, these injections, and sadly, I see it all the time. People just, they want that kind of like easy fix, and usually, there's usually a story behind it. These people aren't lazy. Usually, they're mostly probably just given up trying because it's too hard because they've tried everything. In their mind, they've tried everything. And nothing's ever worked, but they don't realize that these medications, it's funny, they'll try everything, including injections and pills and God knows what else, and major life-changing surgery before they'll try just eating meat.
Yeah.
It's just crazy, but it's just that human mentality. It's so ingrained that like meat is just bad for you, vegetables are good, and they can't comprehend that. They'd rather do surgery and everything. But the thing is, people don't realize these medications, they don't work in the long run.
No,
they never do. They've never been shown to work in the long run. Almost everybody puts more weight back on than they started with these medications. A third of the weight loss is lean body mass. At least a third is muscle.
It's the same with the surgeries too, like left
maybe
hand
2/3.
surgeries.
Yeah, a lot of lean body muscle mass. And people are already under muscle. These people already almost invariably are, skinny fat, sarcopenic obesity, and they're losing even more muscle. And then, we know that muscle mass is so incredibly important for, lowering your risk of chronic diseases, as well as going into a nursing home. And you tell people these things. Absolutely. You tell people these things and they're just like, no, I still want the prescription.
Yeah.
It's just, I don't know. It's scary. And we're moving into this world, more and more. Like, I don't know, but here in Australia, I don't think so necessarily, but in the UK, they're giving Ozempic to kids. Kids with no knowledge of what it's actually doing long term, what the dangers really are of losing that muscle mass. Just basically telling people, we'll just eat less and you'll be healthy, but it's not fixing the underlying problem, which is the bad food and the bad relationship with that bad food. That's what needs to change with these people.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, exactly right. I mean, there's just so many people, even diabetics would rather have a limb amputated than change their lifestyle. People who have like lap band surgery and then go back to eating the same food, they just think that because they're eating less, they'll lose weight. It's crazy. But it's also that people are also very busy, and they're trying to, especially like in times like now with inflation, everyone's trying to work so hard just to try and pay the bills. They don't want to take on a time-consuming sort of, okay, now I've got to change my whole lifestyle. I've got to change what I eat, sort of thing. Cooking is too difficult for me, sort of thing. That's sort of mentality as well, But the beauty about carnivore is that you don't have to. You only have to eat like once a day. They don't realize that you have to get time back.
Depending
Not for me.
Yeah, I'm usually two meals, 2 to 3. But I mean, like this morning, I made everyone breakfast. It took me like 5 minutes to make 5 people. I actually skipped breakfast today. I'm fasting, but 5 people to make them breakfast, like meat and eggs. 5 minutes. I use one saucepan and some coconut oil.
Well,
like it's not hard.
It takes longer to eat out than it does to cook. Believe me, when I'm working, a lot of times I'm working outside, I can get my grill going. I can cook steaks, or I can even make heart attack chicken right there on my truck. It's not that hard. You start up the fire, you put the lard or tallow in there, you throw the chicken or iguana in there, and it's cooking, and you could be working, and you hear it sizzling. You just walk over there like, here, I'm talking on the internet. I go to the kitchen, I flip over the chicken, and I've been eating it. I guess it's just, for me, it's kind of it's part of the process. I don't think about having to go and cook and all that. I just do it. It's just part of my routine. And I'll never understand how people can settle for cheap crap. That processed garbage that's, instead of just something simple like a piece of meat. And hey, if you want to eat plant material, fine. Eat the local fruit and the safe vegetables that you can get locally. There's nothing wrong with that. I've been saying this for all the time that I've been on the internet, ever since 2022. Oh, do you have to go on the carnivore diet? I said, no, you don't have to go on the carnivore diet. It's something you can try. And for some people, it may be a temporary thing. You may have to be on a strict carnivore diet for months or maybe even years until you reset your system. And then you say, you know what, I'm going to add some of this other stuff. And you might feel better. Because I don't believe that humans are 100% carnivore. I think humans are kind of like pigs, They'll eat almost anything. But the problem is, it's like anything else. If you use low-quality materials to build the building, it's going to be a piece of garbage. But if you use high-quality materials, you can do a better job. And think about it. What is your body made of? It's made of proteins, amino acids. So if you're going to eat a bunch of crap, what is it going to do? Well, you got a bunch of sugar. What are you going to do with that? Make more fat, probably. Just stuff your fat cells. Next thing you know, you got a big old gut sticking out. You got fat all around your body, and you look terrible, and you feel worse. It would be better to be leaner without having to think about it. Like me, I don't exercise, and I'm skinny. I don't care. Yeah, they can laugh at me for being skinny, but on the other hand, I'm healthy. I think I'm healthy, and I've got plenty of strength. I'm not built like a lot of these guys that you can look at and be impressed by, but you should see some of the stuff that I do in my regular work, picking up heavy objects, moving things around, that I never get injured. And I think a lot of it is because of all the meat that I eat. I'm constantly getting a supply of protein, complete proteins, and my body can continue to rebuild. And I don't have problems. I mean, how many people do you know that are 6'6", that don't have back trouble and have never had back trouble in their entire life. That's me. I haven't had a cavity since I was a kid. I haven't been to a dentist since 1986. I know people that have plantar fasciitis. My feet never bother me except when I step on a nail, and that goes away after a week or so. And, all these other problems, the migraine headaches and being tired. Most people I know, they breathe heavy when they're working. I don't. So, realistically, what is it? What is the disadvantage of just trying the carnivore diet? Just try it. You don't have to be a permanent carnivore. Try it. I have a friend that tried it. He didn't do so good. So he switched to a meat-based keto diet, and he's thriving on that. But you have to remember, this is a guy that grew up as a vegetarian and vegan for his entire life. So to go from eating plant material to eating animal material, I think was too much. But getting more meat in your diet, that's the key. And you can eat some of the plants, but I would think that after eating all those plants, you're probably so loaded with plant toxins that your body doesn't know what to do when you stop eating them. So I don't know, but that's just my view. And I'm a nobody. I'm not a medical guy. I'm just a quack that likes to eat meat.
Even, talking to Professor Seaford, and a lot of people are trying to get into states, like when you talk about keto diet, they want to get into ketosis and things like that. You can do it on a vegan diet as well. But the concern is if you are going after ketosis, okay, and trying to develop more ketones, for example, if you do it on a vegan diet, you're still eating sugars, and your liver is going to produce more fat, and you can still have fatty liver problems. And when it comes to ketones, when you are on the carnivore diet for especially long term, your body gets more efficient at developing ketones, at sort of utilizing ketones, sorry. So you actually pee less out. So people get concerned that, I'm not producing as many ketones as before, sort of thing. It's not something you need to worry about. It's just that your body's using them more rather than, getting rid of the excess, like it did beforehand. There's a lot of things there are a lot of reasons why people try the carnivore diet or try to get into keto and try to get into ketosis and things like that, because there's a number of benefits, especially if you're fighting cancer, like myself and other people that I know. But I think, again, when it comes to either way you go carnivore or vegan, these are foods that, especially, fruits and vegetables, they are seasonal. We are not used to having an overabundance of these foods at our fingertips all year round. They never used to grow, and we never used to ship them around the world. These foods they also lose nutrients as soon as you pick them. So some of these foods are months old because they've gone through frozen shipment from different countries. So there's nothing wrong with eating it, growing it, and picking it yourself. Try that if you are that desperate for carbohydrates. Grow and pick it yourself. That is the healthiest way to do it.
I think you're right there, David. And people like Dr. Bill Schindler, talk about this, eating seasonally. I think, if you're really healthy, you don't have any major problems. Look, a little bit of seasonal vegetables, seasonal fruit, it's not going to kill you. It's really not. If you eat in a reasonable amount. The problem now is, and I say this to people all the time, exactly what you just said. Like 50 years ago even, that we barely had refrigeration. We came in the 60s maybe, and people can't even remember a time without refrigeration. Some of our viewers may. It's like time before the internet. You're like, oh my god, it must have been like a million years ago.
Yeah,
but we weren't shipping things from all the way around the world. It was locally grown, not sprayed or the rest of it as much, of course, as well. But just even without that, like just things like spinach would have been there for maybe like a week of the year, maybe. Like you never would have eaten enough of these toxins to really cause yourself an issue. I'm sorry if you can hear my kids in the background.
That's right.
But now people are just eating these things all year round, massively overloading themselves. Yeah. And then 20, 30, 40 years down the line, then they're having those issues. And I think this is where the carnivore diet is potentially so powerful, because if they didn't have those problems, taking out those toxins may not be as much of a fix for them. because they're not overloaded and poisoned in the first place. But now, like, everyone's poisoned. And there was a question before. I just wanted to double back on it. I can't remember where it was. Someone asked if I eat any vegetables at all before I had to duck out. I do very occasionally eat some vegetables. I went through a period when I went a bit more animal based, where I added veggies back into my diet, and initially things were fine. But then I noticed I was getting some gut issues and so on. So I've listened to my body. I've pared it back, and I'll eat like maybe a bit of avocado once a month, like some mushrooms occasionally. They're not really vegetables, I know. Maybe like a carrot once a month, like a spoon of peas maybe once every couple of weeks, like really hardly anything. And I don't really miss them. My body doesn't miss them particularly. They taste good, and then they don't. Stop eating them. That's it. My body's told me whatever it wanted from it, it's gone now. But pretty much I eat just like 99% meat now.
Yep. You know, there are vegetables that I eat, and I can show you what vegetables I eat.
Sauerkraut.
You know what that is? Yeah, sauerkraut. Sometimes I'll have that with my heart attack burger or heart attack chicken. That's it.
Yeah. So that's the thing. If you do eat vegetables, I think the best way to take them is fermented form first, because most of them won't break down and they rot in your colon. Things like cabbage, carrots, nuts, grains. These things are all too hard for us to actually digest, so they just rot in your colon. But sauerkraut is fermented in salt. You know, and that salt benefit is also really good for you. I found it fantastic especially after chemotherapy treatments. It was really good for relieving IBS and just leveling out my gut. So I think sauerkraut's a fantastic thing, actually. I don't eat it now. I don't need it on the carnivore diet, but, I used to have it, daily. So it really does help. Yeah.
The other thing about fruit that I wanted to mention is if you grow your own fruit, it's going to ripen on the tree. And if you've ever noticed, animals don't eat green fruit. There's a reason why they don't. And I figure it's because there's a lot of toxins in there. And I've always seen this. You know, if you got fruits growing around your yard, they don't touch them when they're green. The plants are very good at protecting it. But if you're going to eat the fruit, you need to wait until it ripens on the tree. A lot of the commercial fruits that are sold, they're picked early. Like, for example, bananas. All those bananas, they have to be shipped thousands of miles. So they pick them green, and then they have to ripen them artificially. And it makes you wonder, when these fruits are not properly ripened, could they be even more toxic than they are when you pick them right off the tree? And as you said, they're seasonal in nature. How can you eat this stuff constantly all the time? Or like my dad used to do, juicing. You know, you're concentrating all this juice. It's just crazy. I know so many people that did that. When I tried to drink that juice, it made me very ill. So I used to make fun of that. I thought that was the stupidest thing ever. It's like garbage juice.
Nothing natural about them anymore anyway. Like if you have a look at a banana now compared to like 100 years ago, they were small, meek. They look like almost rotten compared to what they look like now. Now they're these big, beautiful looking, clean bananas that just, completely genetically modified.
Well, wild bananas have seeds also. A lot of people don't know that. I used to grow them till the hurricane blew it over. But yeah, the wild bananas have a lot of seeds. There's very little banana material in between. And see, this is the other thing. When I started avoiding plants, I told everyone that seeds were toxic and you shouldn't eat anything that came from a seed. That was my little theory. That's why I don't eat grains and the oatmeal and the bread and all that other nonsense, because I said those are seeds. Those are the part of the plant that wants to grow. And when animals eat the fruit, the seeds come out in the poop, and the poop makes the plants grow. So the idea of grinding up seeds, I mean, I could see why they did it, because I guess people in history were hungry, and you can't always get good meat to eat. So, you know, if you could grow some grass seed and make bread out of it, I guess you can survive, but that's not really good quality food. So then you see that all these agricultural people, they were very short by comparison. And then when you grow up on meat, it's like, look at how much taller you get. There's definitely something there.
Even now, today, like 95% of the world's vegetarians or vegan cultures are so because of economics. it's economic poverty that it keeps them in eating a plant-based diet. It's not
Right.
because of choice. And if you have a
Yeah.
look at India, India is like the largest population of plant-based, but they have the highest per capita of diabetes and chronic disease. So
shockingly bad.
I mean, I'm not saying correlation is causation, but there's a very strong correlation there that a large population of plant-based diet, and they have the highest chronic illness in the world. Like, it's crazy. Whereas if you go to Hong Kong, for example, they've got the highest per capita meat consumption of average of 2 steaks a day per person, and they have the highest longevity age. So,
Yeah, they do. Yeah, I was going to mention Hong Kong there, but you beat me to the punch. But yeah, I mean, Hong Kong's, they're pretty much, I think, the leader in world longevity, and they eat almost, I think it may be the most meat per capita as well. At least historically. Places like, people love to talk about the blue zones, the vegans love to talk about the blue zones and Loma Linda in California. But what they always fail to mention is that the Loma Lindans outlive average Californians, but the Loma Lindans are outlived by the Californian Mormons who eat meat.
Yeah.
And they also
That's
shun alcohol and drugs and all the rest of it, just like the Loma Lindans do.
Yeah, that's right. That whole blue zone BS, like Okinawa in Japan, for example, they cherry picked a period after the Second War where poverty was so high because of inflation and everything after the war that no one could afford to eat meat. So they survived on sweet potatoes and things like that because they just they didn't have anything else at the time. But before the wars and after the wars, like since then, Japanese love meat, and I'm talking everything meat, seafood especially. They love, and anything that had a mother at some point, they eat it, And I mean, they love meat so much they can't even wait for it to cook, right?
They just put it in the soup and eat it.
Yeah, that's right. They either do that or they eat it raw completely. Like, you can go to sushi bars in Japan, you can get raw horse meat, raw beef, you can get, and of course, raw fish, And when it comes to health, like, I lived there for 10 years, and when it comes to in Japan, they do health like by region. There's health sort of studies by region. Okinawa traditionally has been the worst health out of the rest of the Japan, because they also drink a lot of alcohol and smoke a lot of cigarettes. So this whole blue zone nonsense is just an absolute scam, and they just don't expect anyone to actually go and check on this stuff. They just think that you should. This is what we say. You should just believe it. It's absolute nonsense.
Yeah, I mean, it's similar with if we go back to like the Mediterranean diet, and Ansel Keys, and he went to Corfu, I think it was, basically in Lent. These are Greek Orthodoxes, and they're in Lent where they fast, where they don't eat meat. And then he's like, oh yeah, like no one's eating meat. Like, really? Like, you basically cherry picked the right time to go to say that they don't eat meat. And he asked them basically, like, for a day, like, oh, what have you eaten today? Oh, you've eaten vegetables. Okay, that's what you eat all the time. Like, it's just total BS. I wanted to share, actually, talking about, again, longevity and meat. I don't know if you've seen this, David, or anyone else watching. I can maybe put it on if I do like a share screen. And it's this basically study that was just recently put out, and it kind of shows you the BS, marketing of meat and research, and how it's kind of just bastardized, really. So this article came out recently, October 23rd, saying, scientists discover how excessive red meat consumption increases colorectal cancer risk. And of course, that's a really gripping headline. If we kind of scroll down, it basically says, in the study published, it activates this telomerase enzyme here, which extends the DNA of chromosomes, thereby driving the progression of colorectal cancer. But is that actually true? Or is it extending telomerase, which we know is pretty much like the key target for billions, if not trillions of dollars of research into longevity?
Yeah.
And yet red meat is activating telomerase and extending DNA lifespan. Basically, the other way of looking at this paper is to say, well, hang on, red meat makes you live longer.
Exactly.
You know,
Yeah, because
but the research is saying no. The headline is no, red meat causes cancer. Like it's just, it shows you that bias and how the media report these things, and they just twist the research to fit the narrative.
Yeah, that's exactly right. I mean, there was a study coming out last year. Actually, I was reading too that eating red meat extends the life of telomeres, and I mean you want long telomeres because that's the longer the telomere, then obviously the longer your stem cell will live.
Yeah.
Right. So that is actually aging. The shorter those telomeres get, the shorter the stem cell sort of lives, and you need to replace that with more stem cells, sort of thing. So that is actual the aging process. So if eating red meat extends the life of those telomeres, then obviously that is longevity, isn't it?
In a nutshell,
fatty acids
exactly, that's it. And yet then they never say that, they tell you things like the Mediterranean diet, but they never really say what it actually is. Of course, we know that most of those places eat a ton of meat. We know that most of those places eat a ton of saturated fat, like France, they eat a ton of saturated fat. Sweden, I think it is the so-called cholesterol paradox, where they just kind of say, well, the Swedish have super high cholesterol, but they also live really long lives and have low cardiovascular risk. Oh, but they're just weird. Let's just ignore them. They're the outlier. They massage the data, they massage the research to make it fit their agenda.
They always blame saturated fat, like meat for saturated fat, when like most steak, like in a steak, only about 2% is saturated fat. Yeah, you get saturated fat in everything, even carbohydrates.
In beef, beef like brisket, for example, it can be up to 65-70% monounsaturated fat.
Exactly.
But they never tell you that. They just say, go and eat monos, but don't eat animal fats. Like, well, hang on. It's about 65% monounsaturated fat in beef. Anything up to ribeye is probably about 50% maybe. They never tell you that.
No, because that's an inconvenient truth for them.
Yeah.
If meat's healthy, then you won't buy our ultra processed garbage.
That's it.
And another thing is as you do age, and I think this is another reason why because of the telomeres shortening and that sort of stuff. But I'm not really sure of the mechanism there. But anyway, as you do age, your body gets less efficient at turning dietary proteins, amino acids, into muscle proteins. So you actually should be eating more protein as you get older, and fat, animal fats as well. So as you to age better, to be healthier as you age, you need to be eating more meat than you would, like a 20-year-old or 30-year-old, that sort of thing too. So.
But they're constantly telling everyone to eat less protein. I see it all the time. Telling people to eat less protein. I saw an article recently.
I hate the way they group protein all in, like they talk about crude protein, like they talk about macros, like there's just protein and carbohydrates and fat, and that's all there is, sort of thing. We absorb amino acids, and there have to be the right chain of amino acids you can't get from plants. It's like a completely different currency. There's no point bringing British pounds into Australia, and unless you change the currency, you can't spend it. And it's the same with plant proteins and seeds and nuts that you cannot absorb. These, especially hard fibrous sort of things like nuts that you can't break down anyway, that just rot in your colon. You can't get protein out of that, and even if you could, it's the wrong type of protein. So
it's borderline, but most of it's not bioavailable. It's very hard to get all the essential amino acids from plant sources. You can, but that doesn't even account for things like protease enzymes, and the protective shell and so on, blocking it all.
You have to eat like a ton compared to a kilo, which just can't happen. So
Rick's just going to town on that. I'm gonna have to bring a steak onto the next one.
He's done that before. I've seen him sit there eating a steak and just while it was. Question. I'll have a look at this question. Did any of you watch the Australian Simon Hill debating Dr. Kilt? I'm gonna like Dr. Kilt. I did see some of this because Dr. Kilt is a really smart guy. and I did an interview with him that same day. He's very nice. He's a very generous guy. I think he not so great, which is not so great for debating. Simon Hill, I think, is an absolute imbecile. When it got, for example, a short part of this so-called debate was talking about the mechanisms why carnivore diet is healthier than the vegan diet. Okay, because there are mechanisms in the body that we absorb these fats and proteins for our body to process into hormone production and everything like that. These are the mechanisms. These are very important. But Simon Hill, he doesn't know anything about the human body. So he just said, well, I'm not interested in talking about or debating about the mechanisms. I'm just interested in talking about healthy food. That was his reply. The guy's an idiot.
Well, the problem with a lot of I haven't seen the debate, so I'll watch that at some point. But I mean, looking at the video, it's like 2.5 hours. I mean, bloody hell.
It's quite long.
But the problem with a lot of these things is a lot of these people, and Simon may or may not have done this. They kind of talk about the totality of the evidence, or they talk about. They go off they start something that makes sense mechanistically, something, and then they just say, oh, and researchers think this. And it's like, okay, but researchers think is not evidence,
Well,
and they ignore the mechanisms.
They also like to cite so-called trials that have never been done. There have never been any controlled studies, like because you can't keep a population in a lab for their entire life and keep them on a single diet. There are no trials done like that. The closest thing would be, the ketogenic diet has probably been the most studied diet over the last 120 years or so. It's far more than the vegan diet. And there's the Bell study that Wilhelm Stephenson did on just a fat and meat diet that he lived on for 6 years. The Bell study itself was only 12 months, but he actually lived on that with the Inuit and the Arctic people, the river people up in the Arctic. So those are actually the most studied diets, really.
Yeah.
So when they cite all these ridiculous, non-existent clinical studies, they're just lying.
Well, I can't remember the name of the guy now, kind of one of the original, vegan diet kind of proponents in research and so on. I should know the name because it was in my lifestyle exam, but I quickly forgot all that vegan nonsense. And basically, I had to just like grip my teeth and just, the whole thing. Whatever the question was, the answer was vegan's the best. Don't eat meat, basically. But they looked at the fasting mimicking diet versus essentially a vegan diet for outcomes on health, longevity, cardiovascular disease, cancers, everything. And the vegan diet often came out worse than the fasting mimicking diet, which is essentially a ketogenic diet.
Yeah,
and it wasn't even good keto. It was just like, garbage keto. And it was still basically as good, not statistically significantly different than a vegan diet. And it was basically garbage keto. Yeah.
That's the thing. When especially if you study in Australia, you have to really bite your tongue and just tell them what they want to hear. Otherwise, they just won't give you the certificate, basically.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah.
I see Rick is driving some animals to the brink of extinction in the background.
It's making me very hungry.
Yeah. 4 things important to life is health, family, freedom, and integrity. Yeah, exactly. Food, is that working? Is a person who probably need numbers or not? Yeah, that all and end all. No, exactly right. It's sorry guys, I'm gonna have to skip some of these comments because I have to let these guys go. It's been a pretty good discussion, I think, today. I think there's a lot of things we can really talk about this sort of subject, but when it comes to these debates, when they talk about vegan talking points, none of them have any basis really, because they're talking about opinion pieces basically, because there is no study There's no clinical evidence, no clinical study on these diets for longevity or the health of outcomes and things like no long term anyway. And they really don't have any real basis to show that. They're really just repeating talking points of these ultra processed food companies that pay for these studies as well. But it's something that I think at least now, I think a lot more people are talking about it, and a lot more people there is a lot more stories out there. And this is I think like the Kills was saying the other day, we learn from stories, experiences, and planting the seed out there is a really good thing, because stories like yourself, Suresh, you've been a doctor as well, so you've seen it in your patients, but it's also seeing for yourself too that you've come from being obese, pre-diabetic, probably would be diabetic, except that Australia's numbers are sort of higher than most other nations, because they don't want us to think that we're unhealthy. We're just plus sized apparently. But again, these are talking points really, and I think the more people come out with their stories, the more this is evidence. This is about as much evidence as you're going to find. Like when you look for clinical studies, this is probably one of the biggest clinical studies you're going to see, because there are thousands, tens of thousands of people coming out with stories how they have reversed conditions, healed, and are thriving on the carnivore diet.
Yeah.
So,
and I've seen just honestly some unbelievable things. I've got one patient in particular. I won't obviously mention them by name or anything, but this person has just got almost every condition you can imagine, and just now slowly improving on the carnivore diet, actually quite amazingly quickly for this person, but otherwise quite slowly as far as general standards, but they're getting there. And the transformation in this patient is just unbelievable. And this is what we're seeing on this carnivore. And when I say carnivore, I'm going to include anything from really almost strict carnivore, zero carb, to full on animal based, really within that sphere. Getting rid of all those plant toxins is just so unbelievably powerful for these people. And I see, hopefully, the future, more and more people are going to be talking to their doctors about it. More and more people are going to be going and saying, no, I don't want to be eating this bad food anymore. I want to be healthy. I want to heal. I don't want to live life the way that, I've been living. And hopefully more doctors are going to start to jump on board with it as well. I'm certainly seeing a groundswell from patients. Most of them come in to see me now. I've noticed over the last maybe year or so, really interestingly as a doctor, a lot of the patients that see me now they didn't know that I'm kind of carnivore. But they used to come in and they used to kind of say, Dr. Suresh, I'm doing this diet. It's like a high protein diet, and I mainly just eat a lot of meat. And they're kind of like treading the water, like testing the water to see where I'm at. I don't really eat much vegetables. And I'm like, okay, so you do a carnivore diet, and they're like, oh my god, thank God, like sweat off their brow, like they're so worried about talking about it. But now they come in and just like, yeah, I do carnivore.
Yeah, that's good.
There's definitely a shift. It's becoming more, I think, socially acceptable, which is, I think, a really good thing. Yeah, people are getting more confident in talking about it.
Yeah, and I think, like you said, like they don't have to be 100%. Like I started just by adding more meat, just by adding more fat, basically. I always had meat, but I had the wrong type of meat, and it was, it didn't have enough fat. And it's amazing how. It is a slow process when you're healing. I'm still healing, like after 10 years. But when you think about how much has happened in that time period, it actually is quite fast. It's amazing how resilient your body is. I think it's incredible. It's absolutely an amazing machine. There's nothing that people could design as good as the machine that is your body. I think it's absolutely fantastic. And that's what I want people to understand is it may be a slow process at the time, but when you look back, you realize just how fast it happens. It does. It is incredible. It really is. A's got a good point. When you have thousands of anecdotes, all the same, then you have to have a defensible hypotheses. Yes, exactly.
I think Aid's absolutely right there. And what people forget, I think, in the medical scientific sphere is, they very much just poo-poo anecdotes. Oh, it's just anecdote. Like, you can't prove that. Like, there's nothing. Yeah. They forget that people, yeah, they do. But they forget that people, like almost every single bit of research, it starts from a hypothesis. And that's what Aid's saying there. And the hypothesis doesn't just come out of nowhere. It comes from usually an anecdote. People like Isaac Newton in like gravity. It's like that apple fell on his head. Like, that was an anecdote.
Yeah, exactly.
He could have very easily, someone just said, oh, mate, like, no, that's just an anecdote. Who cares? Like, nah, that's not a thing. And then, like, there's no gravity. Like,
Yeah.
It all happens from an anecdote. And then they test that anecdote. The problem is now we're in this world. They do. They question it.
The problem
and they
is
test
at the moment, you're not allowed to question the science.
No, we're not. And so they're not testing it. They're not researching. They're not saying, well, why are thousands, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands, maybe millions of people across the world finding benefit from reducing vegetables and eating more meat? They're just saying, nah, you can't do that. That's unhealthy.
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah,
exactly. All right, guys, I think we'll leave it there. So I'm just going to, we'll just finish up. I just want to go back to what I was talking about before with stem cells. There are a number of ways that as we get older, we get less efficient at releasing stem cells. We always produce stem cells, but we tend to hold on to them and don't release them as fast as we used to when we were younger. So the number of ways that we can stimulate this. Fasting is really good for stimulating stem cell release. It's also very good for lengthening telomeres. Also red meat. But also these products here, Stem Enhance Ultra is a great way it also helps you to release more stem cells into your blood system. The plasma flow, also a very good product to help clear the pathway for your stem cells in your blood system, and the Cyactive. Great products. I recommend them. I use them. They're the only sort of thing that I do use as a supplement myself, but it's not actually a supplement. They are what you call a nutraceutical. So I recommend them. Any last words, Suresh?
Yeah, not specifically. I think just people should just be open to the idea maybe of eating more meat if they're on the fence. Talk to people who do this, come on to shows like this, just listen to some of what people are saying. Acknowledge maybe that, some of the evidence out there isn't great for any diet, let alone the carnivore diet, of course, but the proof's in the pudding, so to speak, and just be open-minded. And I think carnivore, I used to rail a little bit against it, people saying carnivore, but then they may be eating berries or something, I think carnivore is just a sphere, and there's different levels of carnivore. And I think anything within that sphere of just eating more meat, reducing the plant toxins, I think is going to be good. And I think people just find your own line in the sand, find your own space within that framework. Anything from strict zero carb, even all the way up to animal-based diets. So find what works for you as an individual and just stick with that.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, the point is to eat more meat and eat more fat. This is the basis for improving your health for sure. If you eat other things, that's fine, but just slowly increase the amount of meat and fat that you eat. You will certainly notice a difference. I think there's a lot of dogma too about these fruits being high in antioxidants and things like that, like berries, blueberries and things like that as well. But actually, they're not antioxidants; they're actually oxidants. I recommend nutritionists like Richard Smith. He's a brilliant guy. Does a lot of stuff on that as well. And think about the source of your food. Okay, highly like these monocrop farms or big industrial farms, things like that. These fruits and vegetables are highly toxic as well. The chemicals that are sprayed on them So you want to get as clean a food as possible. And for that reason, I also avoid things like chicken and pork, because they are monogastric animals that are fed on soy and things like that. So think about the source of your food, think about what your food eats as well, and that will certainly help you clean up your diet a lot. All right, guys, thank you everyone for joining us. Really appreciate it. Thank you again for joining us, Dr. Suresh.
You're welcome. Thanks for the invite.
Anytime. And we'll see you all again next time. Thank you.